Okay, it tells me I'm live, so let me know whether I actually know or whether it's lying to me. Hi everybody. Hi Captain Laser. Hi Dick. Hi DB Cooper. Hi FG. Yep, we're live, and it is the scheduled live stream. No, we're already coughing. So just let me know whether this is working, and we'll move on from there. And I'll tell you what I've been doing, what I'm going to be doing, and what's happening with everything. Um, Yeah, very busy weekend. Very family oriented. Yep, Friday's on time. Friday, what the hell's going wrong there? You are on time this time, and that's not usually the case. But yeah. So just give me a sound check. Yeah, yep. For sale 11. For sale 100 says yep, functioning. Notham says howdy, and Ralph hears me 5x5, which I think is good. But yeah. By the way, according to the thumbnail, I actually do have the Zuni fetish doll. There is the Zuni fetish doll. The head's come off. I've got to fix it. But the fetish doll, and the camera's focusing on it, is a real thing. It's a real part of the collection. But I am going to find a way to permanently fix it and put it up on there. Dick says everything working. Give Roxy a hug for me, Dick. Dick and Carol's cat Roxy has been unwell. So I've been following Roxy's problems on Facebook, but send them some love. But yeah, very busy weekend for us in a lot of things. Friday says, I know I'm surprised to have been busy sorting out my workroom and other productive stuff today. Good. One day I'll sort out the man cave, but I'm not sure when. Ralph says, looks familiar. Is it from an Amicus film? No, it's not. It's from Trilogy of Terror, an American TV movie with 3 parts with Karen Black in it. And the Zuni fetish doll is a part of that. Trilogy of Terror is probably one of the best American television horror movies, along with Night Stalker and Night Strangler. It's a really good one. And picked this up at Pop Culture in Geelong. It was, hi, Mystery Man. Yeah, so I picked it up. It was in a little shaky condition, so I got it very cheaply. But I am going to fix up the head and make it part of the collection. So here's what I've been doing on the weekend. Sal and I went down to visit family down in the Latrobe Valley, which is kind of like southeast of Melbourne, about 200 kilometres out, 200 kilometres from here. And so we went out in the Latrobe Valley, which is where a lot of the power generation for the state of Victoria happens because they've got brown coal deposits there. We are going to renewables, but that whole area is got enormous holes in it. But we went there. I did a video for the other channel looking at 2 places there. So that'll be up on the other channel this week. But we visited family over there. I'll kind of make it brief, but our niece, who is 29, is dying of cancer, and she's in palliative care. So we went down there and spent the night and hung out with family to kind of say goodbye to Steph. And it was very good for the family. It was really a bonding thing, but it was very heavy as well. So that's what we've been doing on the weekend. And I did find out one interesting thing, though. I am incredibly good at Mario Kart World, the game on the Switch 2 console. I am really good at that. And Sally got pissed off because I beat her about 10 times playing Mario Kart. So, yeah, busy weekend. It was good to get out of town. It was good to get in the countryside and just look around. But, yeah, so this was happening. So we've got a few things that I actually got organised for the live stream before I went away for the weekend. And I'll go with the second one first. But Dick says thank you for the kind thoughts about Roxy. She's had to go into animal hospital 2 hours away for special support and has just been trying to find out where she's possibly coming home. Carol's updating Facebook. Thanks for the love. We're all a community, Dick. Roxy's family. I mean, pets are family. Whether you like it or not, pets are family. And yeah, when they're not doing well, it does hit us really hard. We did meet another part of the family, a pet family, while we were in Maui. Uh, Jack, the Jack Russell Terrier, really bonded with Selenite, and so we got to play with a Jack Russell Terrier for the what would have been about 40 hours we were there. So all of that, out and about, which is good, but the reason why we were out and about is bad. So all of that has been happening, and there will be parts of it in the video. I didn't get to watch any movies, which is fair enough because family stuff. Let me just close the box on the Zuni Fetish shop. But I did hit a couple of op shops, and I picked up a couple of things. Not much, but I picked up a couple of things, and I'll do them first. Now, there's a little town called Yarragon, which is on the way to where we were going. Little kind of whistle stop town on a train line. Used to be called Waterloo because down along the railway line through Gippsland, they had got a town that used to be called Waterloo, and another one that used to be called which is still called Trafalgar, and they're next to each other on the railway line. But Yarragon changed its name to the Indigenous name, which is fair enough too. But they had a market there, and they had a really good bakery with really good meat pies, and so we did Yarragon and had a good time there. And they had a little op shop run by the Lions Club, and I went in there and found some Blu-rays for $1 each, which was good value. And so I picked up. I've already got this, so I'm going to put this into a box of some kind. But I got Argo on Blu-ray for $1, which is kind of good. It's not a bad movie. And I got Coriolanus, directed by Ray Fiennes. Haven't seen this, but I like Shakespeare adaptations, so I got them. Friday says I got an advert, Mr. Waterloo thing. It was about ABBA. No, it wasn't, because I don't like ABBA. It was about a place called Yarragon, which used to be called Waterloo, Friday. And we went there and hung out with the family there a bit. And then when I was in Maui, I went to the op shop that was open on a Sunday, which was Vinnie's. And I picked up for $10 the Alan Ladd Collection Volume 1, which has got 5 Alan Ladd movies in it. Now, I've just checked on Imprint's website, Viavision's website, and this is out of print. And I did have it in the original shrink wrap, so it wasn't used. I took it out of the shrink wrap to look at the discs, but picked it up for $10. It's out of print on Viavision's website, but the price on Viavision's website was $50. So I got that for $10 instead of $50, which I'm very, very happy about. The movies are 2 Years Before the Mast, Calcutta, Red Mountain, Thunder in the East, and an interesting one that was really late in the career of Alan Ladd, 13 West Street. So I got all of those. Very happy I got that cheaply. There are 3 volumes of that now from Viavision, but I've only got volume 1. Let's see what the chat's saying. Forsale says there's a town in Iowa named Waterloo. Yep, there's also a suburb in Sydney, really close to the city, called Waterloo as well. Patrick says, hi Patrick. Patrick says, Trilogy of Terror was almost as good as Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Those gremlins were creepy. Yeah. Ralph says, speaking of Waterloo, I just finished listening to the Jaws score reissued on vinyl. Any scores back there on vinyl? Yeah, there are a lot of them back there on vinyl. Might drag them all out for the next live stream. A lot of things there, but I haven't played them for a while. But I definitely have a lot of scores. D. Lee says, managed to avoid doing anything at all today, but I did see The Invisible Man 1954, which was an interesting and atmospheric film. Thanks for the tip. Yeah, that one, by the way, the last video I did was about the 1954 Invisible Man movie that Japan made. It's on archive.org. So people have found it on archive.org. And I'm glad that it's available because getting the DVD copy of it's $150 on Amazon. So I don't recommend you get it at that price point. So yeah, very busy weekend. Going to be very busy weekend coming up too. There's tons of stuff to do there. And then on the 6th of December, Cinemaniacs at the Astor Theatre are showing Frankenhooker, one of the great bad movies about monsters. And they're doing their Christmas party as well, so I'm going to that as well. But this weekend we've got Other Family coming up, tons of stuff happening. Doug's here, Boomer Doug's here. Hey all, yeah, hi Doug. People should check out Doug's channel as well, but not right now. So yeah, tons of stuff happening. Now, I did have a freaky occurrence during the week. Something that really messed with my head because I scroll YouTube a lot. You know, I look at a lot of YouTube videos. I'm subscribed to a lot of channels. Not all of them movie channels, but I look at a lot of things. And also part of it is researching how to do my videos better by seeing what works on other channels. But the YouTube algorithm was giving me the same things all the time. It was giving me the same channels and the same videos on channels I wasn't quite interested in. So I did what I normally do, which is I cleared my search cache on YouTube, and I cleared my watched video cache, which gives you a clean slate to start again with. And I did that, and then I went in and watched a couple of videos because it doesn't give you any recommended once you've done that. You've got to put something in there for it to trigger the recommended algorithm. And I went down a rabbit hole. It wasn't deliberate. It was weird, but it wasn't deliberate. And what happened was YouTube started feeding me a lot of videos from scientists and reputable scientists and reputable computer scientists about the threat of AI apocalypses, like not even artificial general intelligence, but just a runaway AI destroying the world. And there are some very plausible scenarios of that. The best consensus I could find was that there's about a 15% chance that in the next 10 years, we ain't going to be here. And that's from reputable scientists. That isn't from your cranks. That isn't from weirdos. That isn't from tinfoil hat people. That's from the people who know what they're talking about. And there are a lot of people working in AI who are telling their families not to go near it because there are a lot of other threats of AI. Using AI to generate your content and things like that changes brain structuring. You don't have as much creativity and you tend to rely on it much more than you should. So I went down this whole rabbit hole for about, 4 hours, where all I was seeing on YouTube was AI apocalypses. And it occurred to me that the algorithm was steering me towards that because of the input I gave it. I'm blaming me. But there was a lot of AI apocalypses in my head. And I kind of stepped away from it and then randomly chose some fun videos on YouTube to shift the algorithm away from it, just feeding me doom and gloom and very, very plausible and very, very scary scenarios. There's a piece by piece one where it goes through every single step toward the extermination of the human race in the next 10 or 15 years. And from everything I can see, it's not unrealistic. So that scared the fuck out of me, so I went away from it after a while. But if you're not careful, algorithms can get into your brain, is what I'm saying. And they can take you to places that maybe aren't healthy for you. I mean, I'm aware of the threat of AI, and I tend to not rely on it in search. I tend to not rely on it when I'm scripting anything. I'm old school with that kind of thing. And I'm happy to be old school. It's a bit like calligraphy. I'm basically doing the internet equivalent of calligraphy now, where I'm doing it by hand and I'm not relying on fonts. Let's have a look to see what this chat's saying. Dick says, just watched Airport this afternoon. Take my mind off things on TV. Channel Legend. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't mind the airport movies. I think they're fun. I think they get more and more absurd as they go along, but they are fun. D. Lee says the Internet Archive is your friend. Plenty of good stuff on there, including thousands of books, films, TV, and other stuff. Yeah, I like the Internet Archive as an archive of the internet, which doesn't have a bias in the same way that streaming services tend to have a bias. For Sale 100 says the scientists are probably right. Sorry. I've been hearing similar from guests on the Ralph Nader Radio Hour. Yeah, there are landmines in the future that we've got to dodge. Patrick says 2 rules: don't drive angry and don't stream when depressed. I wasn't particularly depressed. I wasn't depressed even when I was looking at these apocalypses. But my attention was drawn to them. And because I'm interested in that subject, and I'm interested in technology in general and trends in technology, it's one of the kind of mental side hustles I have. I was intrigued by it, and because I was intrigued by it, the algorithm grabbed me by the forebrain and pulled me into it. But I've got enough will to drag myself out of it. But I'm aware of the stickiness of certain trends in algorithms and things like that. It's like a tar baby. Once you touch it, you're stuck to it. And I was very good at kind of getting out of it. Patrick says, so the AI has kind of been training you? It tried to, but then I'm a contrary person. For a while, I just let it happen. And I thought, I'm going to get a good video out of this. I'm going to have a bit of a chat on the live stream out of this. And I'm kind of self-aware enough to realize when it's happening and that my attention's being drawn into it. And I had plenty of spare time. I mean, it's not something I'm going to dwell on. It's something I'm going to be aware of. And it's something I don't want to particularly contribute to because I'm self-educated. So relying on someone else to spoon feed me information is not something I like doing. I've always learned things for myself. And so maybe I'm not the best person for this kind of sticky algorithm. But I think people who are younger than me and have different life experiences than me can be seduced by the fact that the algorithms are designed by the people who create the platforms to monopolize your attention. Dick says, well, check out the Internet Archive when I can. Sounds interesting. It is. There's a lot of good stuff on the Internet Archive. Friday says, what's a great couple of YouTube videos about great psychedelic soundtracks on movies? Some obvious movies, quite rightly there, and some movies I never heard of. Yesterday's Papers channel. Yeah, I like Yesterday's Papers. They put some really good classic music stuff out there. I mean, there's things like the Vampiros Lesbos soundtrack for the Jess Franco movie is a really good psychedelic soundtrack. Yep. For Sale says Yesterday's Papers is great. New episodes especially. Yeah, you should check that one out. It's got a deep archive too of pop hits of the 60s and what was trending in the UK charts in the 1960s. Really fascinating stuff. So what's the weather? We'll do the weather check because we always do a weather check on the channel. What's the weather like where you are? I mean, here it's great. It's 14 degrees. It's sunny. It's going to be sunny. Last couple of days when I was off in the country, pissed down with rain. Really got very, very heavy rain down there, and that curtailed a lot of activities we were doing. But I did get the videos, and I managed to get the videos in between rainstorms. So what's the weather where you are? I know it's nighttime for most of you, and the sun's setting. You're in the Northern Hemisphere, so you've got that stupid thing where Christmas is cold, and I don't understand that at all. I think it's a bad choice on your part to have cold Christmases. For Sale says cloudy and a cool 44 degrees Fahrenheit. Alexa, what's 44 degrees Fahrenheit and centigrade?
44 degrees Fahrenheit is about 6.67
6.67 degrees. FG says 12 degrees C here in eastern Kansas. That's not terribly bad. I mean, yeah, it's 14 here, so roughly the same. 49 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy in NYC, says Michael. Cool. Yeah. It has been steadily warming up, and even when it was rainy down in the Latrobe Valley where we were, it still wasn't cold. Cold and soggy, says D. Lee. I can sympathise with that. We've had it for the last few days. But, yeah. Dick says, been wet and windy off and on in Dover. Kemper brightened up this afternoon, was quite sunny. Cool. I've just been watching a video out of Blackpool, and they've got some very big storms there. I know Scotland's got a whole bunch of snow just landed on it. So lots of very diverse weather. I'm cold in London, says Zammy Adams. So, yep. Ralph says we're 32 degrees in Clearwater, Florida. Clearwater, that's where all the Scientologists are, isn't it? It's where the cult is. Yeah, I could handle 32. 7 degrees, says Dick tonight. And yeah, 7 degrees is about where it gets bad for me, because I do have a PTSD trigger on being too cold, because I was unhoused for a while in the winter, and that kind of triggered part of my PTSD. So I don't mind warm. And even though it is 14 degrees out, I still got a heater on underneath the desk here. I'm actually going to turn it down a little bit. But, yeah, we live with what happens in our lives. So, yeah, the other thing, too, I've got to remind people, I'm going to be doing YouTube Shorts all of December, where I'm doing a reverse advent calendar, where I've got a whole bunch of 24 movies, and I'm going to be putting them into a box, which is the advent calendar, one day at a time. And when the box is full with 24 videos, I'm going to do a raffle among the channel members and the patrons, and give that box full of videos away to them. There are some really good things in the box. There are some kind of ordinary things in the box. But, well, they're going to be in the box. It's not in the box yet. But over 24 days, every day for the 24 days, I'm going to be releasing a YouTube short where I put another movie into the box and do a little bit of a talk about it. So that's coming up in next month. And I just wanted to give back in a way. I also wanted to, YouTube says I should do shorts, so I thought I'd give it an experiment and do some shorts over December. Dick says, been down to 2 degrees during the day. That's just not right, Dick. Hi, Siren 858. Let's have a look here. Good morning, everyone from Nipaluna. Cool. Nipaluna I like, but I like it when it's warmer. Mystery Man says, unusually warm, no snow in Denver. The weather's actually really decent in Tasmania at the moment, which is good. Franny says, woo, Advent idea. Yeah, I thought it up while I was actually recording a video. And I thought, I do have a whole bunch of things that I'll put aside because they're duplicates, but they're good. And I thought the best thing I can do, and there's a couple of Criterions in there as well, a couple of Criterion Blu-rays, which I upgraded when Imprint did some stuff. So there are going to be some really good movies in that Advent calendar. Ramsar says, sunny 21 degrees C in West LA after a week of pouring rain, thunderstorms, and lower temperatures. Mystery Man says, I've been unhoused as well. Yeah, it lingers in your mind. I mean, I'm happy now. We've got the house. We own the house. But that kind of that appreciation of not being unhoused stays with me. The fact that we've got secure accommodation for the rest of our lives is something that I can't underestimate the power of, and I can't underestimate how much of a balm that is for the mind to know that whatever happens, apart from an apocalypse or apart from a house burning down, we've got secure accommodation. Let's see. Dick says, talking of boxes, there's an unusual Christmas box on its way to me, minus the cat biscuits this time. Yeah, because the Border Patrol blocked Dick sending us organic material. Thank you very much, Dick. I appreciate that from you and Carol. And I'll do a video about what you sent me. I will do that because that'll be fun. Deborah from Tassie here. Hi, Deborah. How you doing? For some reason, YouTube's using her old account. That's fine. I don't mind where it is. So, yeah, Deborah is a good movie reviewer as well. She does some really nice stuff. Yeah, thank you, Dick and Carol. Appreciate that. Love your work. The other things that have been happening here in Australia is one of my favourite cities in Australia, Darwin, up in the Northern Territory, right up the top of the middle part of the country, got hit by another cyclone. Now, in 1974, around Christmas, the town got obliterated by Cyclone Tracy. And there was an enormous airlift to get resources there and to bring people out of Darwin while they rebuilt. It was one of the biggest disasters in the country. And a Category 3 hit Darwin yesterday. And it blew the top floor off the hospital, Royal Darwin Hospital. It tore the roof off a whole bunch of places. It tore down a lot of trees. But because I used to do radio for ABC Radio Darwin, I've been there a few times. It really hits when a place that you know and you love gets hit by an apocalyptic windstorm. And this one wasn't as bad as 74, but it's the worst one they've had since 1974. They're rebuilding and they're much better prepared for cyclones than they were back then. But Darwin got hit yesterday. And there's a lot of fun stuff with middle of a cyclone. There's a guy windsurfing off Nightcliff Beach. And you think, the worst thing you can possibly do in a cyclone is go windsurfing. But this clown's out there on the board with the sail out, windsurfing in a fucking cyclone. They're mad up there. They're kind of like gonzo mad in Darwin. But I love them for that. And lots and lots of love and support going out to Darwin at the moment. Hi, Captain Laser. Doug says, I remember Cyclone Tracy. I even vaguely remember a Christmas pop song about it. Yeah, Santa Never Made It Into Darwin was the song. It was incredibly puerile, but it was very popular. Deborah says, cheers, mate. I'm well but late to party. He who must not be listened to, aka BF, is starting a new job today. Okay. Well, took us to him about the job. So it says, I once been worried about friends in Northern Territory. Yeah. There's a thing at the Darwin Museum, the Territory Museum, where you can go into a tin shed inside the museum and you stand in the tin shed and it plays the sounds of Cyclone Tracy at the volume people were hearing it at in Cyclone Tracy. So you get all the rattling and the winds and the apocalyptic sounds of Cyclone Tracy when you go to the museum. And it's freaking terrifying. Captain Laser says, my sister just visited Melbourne, said it was lovely. Sent some incredible pictures. Seeing payphones still working made me smile. Yeah, the payphones are free now. And they've also got Wi-Fi hotspots at them because it's useful to have that and also helps unhoused people stay connected because even unhoused people have phones, but they may not have a data plan. So the free payphones are still a good thing. D-Lee says, is that why they call them the Darwin Awards? No, that's about getting yourself out of the gene pool. They did name Darwin after Charles Darwin. But Darwin's just like a great place. Fantastic food. The markets there, the fresh food markets are next level wonderful. The people there are crazy, but incredibly hospitable. It's very hot and very humid. But we found out a secret when we went there. If you go to Darwin, drink twice as much water and walk about 40% slower, and you're going to have a great time with it because Darwin is just a fantastic place to visit and hang out at. There are all sorts of places in the rural areas to go to. There's a big music scene there. There's a lot of good indigenous culture up there in Larrakia lands. It's just really quirky and lovely and fun, and just the best thing. Friday says, in the cyclone, windsurfers are mad. Yeah, they are. We get windsurfers down at Altona Beach, and I'm going to go out on a windy day, see if I can spot some windsurfers and take some video for the other channel, because they are incredibly athletic and it's very visually beautiful stuff. But Altona Beach is the best place around Melbourne to do windsurfing. Deborah says, I lived through a low-level cyclone in Caravan in WA many years ago. It wasn't a fun time. No, we visited Darwin just after a cyclone that knocked down a lot of trees, and we could see the kind of post-cyclone damage that happens. But yeah, Darwin's just a fantastic place. There's some really weird stories about Darwin. Like in the 1970s, two guys in an aluminium tin boat, one of those like 12-foot long tinnies, loaded 4 cans of petrol into the boat for the outboard motor. And they actually motored from Darwin to Indonesia, which is like 400 kilometers across the open ocean. They did that just on a bet because somebody bet them they couldn't do it at the local pub. So they went down, got all the jerry cans full of petrol, and ended up on an Indonesian island 3 days later. There are all those kind of stories about Darwin, which are crazy, but really interesting things. Yeah, the video is up on the ABC website, Franny, of the guy windsurfing in a cyclone, which is, he could have ended up in Indonesia if he'd had it on. Though the winds aren't right for that. The cyclone probably would have ended up in Western Australia at best. But yeah, just wonderful stuff. And this time of year is cyclone season down here. And lots of love to everybody in Darwin. They're just really fantastic people. And I learned so much doing movie reviews for ABC Darwin over 13 years. It was just a fantastic experience, and I met so many fantastic people. Friday says, a naked windsurfer crazy, but your story blows that out of the water. Yeah, naked windsurfer. I wouldn't be a naked windsurfer because there is a lot of spray, and the spray hits windsurfers pretty hard. And the last thing I want to do is get hit in the wedding tackle by a whole bunch of really fast ocean spray. Ramazar said, we had a dad and 7-year-old daughter die after getting too close to the Pacific Ocean, and the waves pulled them into the ocean in Monterey County. Dangerous. Yeah, we get that in Sydney. There are a whole bunch of people who do rock fishing off the rock ledges down almost at the water level of Sydney because they've got limestone cliffs all along the coast there. And regularly, rock fishermen get dragged out to sea around Sydney, and there are lots of warnings, there are lots of precautions they're encouraging people to take for that reason. Captain Laser says Florida has a hurricane. When they have hurricane parties, they lock down and drink up. Does that happen in Australia? Yeah, it does. Darwin in particular, there are like everybody locks down. They're also they open up public shelters for people during the cyclones. But yeah, people locked down. There was a notification because I was tracking this because I've got like connections to Darwin. And on the Darwin Facebook page, they were telling you which booze shops were still open during the cyclone. So you can last minute get your booze to wait out the cyclone. And they did that. There was like, oh yeah, the BWS here in Nightcliff is still open at the moment. So if you want to get your last minute booze for your cyclone party, this one's still open and you can do it. Now, I don't understand why you wouldn't stock up early rather than later, but people are people. Friday says, my first day sailing in a 29-foot yacht in Yugoslavia, 2 miles off the coast, force 4, gusting to force 5. We are reefing in the mainsail as the sea is running over the decks on one side, and then we spot a naked windsurfer. Crazy, but your story blows out of the water. Sorry, I didn't read all of your text there, Friday. Yeah. I kind of wonder whether the windsurfer was naked when they started, or whether it just blew the pants off them. That's a possibility. The swill must go on, says For Sale. Yeah, Darwin, yeah, they're pretty regular drinkers up there. Captain Lazy says, that's wonderful that shelters are open. Elderly economic issues is an option to bug up. Yeah, there are also Indigenous people who come up from on country to visit family. And I know a couple of the Indigenous areas around Darwin, which are Indigenous lands. There are a couple of issues with the housing there. And so the shelters are very important for that reason. The housing's great and the communities are great up there. Larrakia people are very, very hospitable and wonderful people. But there really are those resources for those who need it. And also, if your house, you don't feel your house is particularly secure for some reason, and you don't think it's going to do well during the cyclone, you can go to those shelters. Or even if you're just a little bit unsure, the shelters are safe. Ralph says, and now I'm imagining Night of the Living Dead with booze shops in the lower third during the emergency broadcast. That would happen in Darwin. D-Lee says, I was in Iceland earlier this year and visiting Black Sand Beach where the sneakier waves are deadly. Yeah, never underestimate the ocean. I've been pulled out in a rip swimming in Sydney unexpectedly, and I was doing the right thing. I was like staying within the flags because they have red and yellow flags, and that's the area on the beach where you can swim safely. But I got caught in a rip on Tamarama, and it pulls you out so fast you don't notice it while you're swimming around. And I had to get rescued by one of the surf lifesavers. And I did the right thing. He said, you're doing the right thing, but you just got tired, which is the rip's pulling you that way. Just say it's pulling you that way out to sea. You swim across it till you get to calmer water. So even if it is dragging you out, you swim sideways to get out of the rip. And I was doing that. I was almost out of the rip, but it was just too exhausting. And so Lifesaver came and helped me. I didn't need help all the way to the beach, but enough that I could get out of the rip. Otherwise, I would have been pulled a kilometre out to sea, which is not what I wanted. And sharks don't bother me on beaches because I'm pure of heart. Are we getting another ad on the chat, or is it happening here? Dick says a Sharknado type movie, but with naked surfers instead of sharks. Wonder what its title will be. Sky Tits? I don't know. But, you'd have to get a lot of naked surfers out there for it to be any kind of menace. And Sharknado is fun. We've got the Sharknado movie. Sal's got Sharknado merch. Sharknado is a great franchise from the Asylum because it's shamelessly exploitation stuff. And there's actually a documentary coming out called Mockbusters, which is about the people who make those, basically cheapo apocalyptic movies or cheapo mockbusters. Umbrella's putting it out, and it looks like a lot of fun. Ramsar, $4.95. Keep up the good work. Cheers. Thank you. Here we go. Ramsar gets the fart gun right down the bore there. Look at that. Thank you, Rams. I appreciate it, mate. Quite a lot of ads tonight, says Dick. That's not necessarily a bad thing, Dick, because it gives me money. Capitalize says, big issue question, are typhoons off Australian coast stronger with climate change? Probably, and they're getting more frequent because warmer air can hold more humidity, more liquids. It's going to happen. Where I live, less than a kilometre from here, we had a tornado a month ago that ripped right through part of the suburb I live in. So smaller things like that are happening as well. We only get like a cyclone, like a tornado in Victoria once every 3 years, but we're getting them more and more increasingly frequently. And this one could have ripped the roof off my house very easily had it come 300 meters north of where it was. And we didn't even know there was a cyclone. There was no warning. We knew there were storms and there was lightning strikes. Okay, it looks like I am live this time. Hopefully we'll get some people onto here because this is egregiously annoying. And I don't know how to get going again because my ISP is going to be hearing from me. Let's just wait and see if we get anybody here. Okay, hi. Hi, Deborah. I hate my ISP. Yeah, not sure. This is twice in, yep, that's twice in 2 weeks, right around the same time. This is going wrong. Now, I don't know if it's somebody in the street because last time it was somebody in the street working on the pits. But, hate this. It's worse than when the camera went random on me. Hate this, hate this, hate this. It's annoying. And hopefully people will pick up on this live stream. We'll move on from this because I do everything right. I try to do everything right. I try to do everything the way it should be. And then things go wrong and it annoys me. And then suddenly I'm looking at my own frozen mug on the screen and things aren't going right. And I'm going to rant for a little bit because I'm unhappy with it. Let's see. Hopefully we'll get, there we go, 7 people now. We're slowly getting everybody back. Yep, we got you back, says Dick. Everything is getting there. Yeah. I've had a rough weekend. I don't need this kind of hassle. But I've got it, and I've got to live with it. By the way, the camera that went random, I've got it here to show you. There it is. The little other camera is kind of cool. And it's not unlike the gimbal I'm working with now. But it just goes too random. I can use it really well for doing most of my other videos when I'm sitting at this desk. But there it's there it is there. And we still haven't got everybody back yet, unfortunately, which is a shame. But hopefully they can find us. By the way, I did see Wicked for, what was it, Wicked for Fun or whatever it is? What is it? I've just gone blank because I've been discombobulated. Wicked for Good. That's what I've seen. Went to see Wicked for Good for Sal for her birthday. Yeah, Wicked for Good. I did see it for Sal's birthday. We went to Reading Cinemas with the reclining seats and all that. Hadn't seen the first one. I just didn't get around to it, seeing the first one. So I watched the second one. I'm probably going to go back and watch the first one. Had a good time with it. It was fun to see. And it was fun to just look at the way they did things, like there's a move through a mirror. And several times. They were like moving the camera point of view through a mirror several times. Carol said, did Sally get her tattoo? Yes, she did. She got her tattoo on her leg, the one honouring our niece Steph, which is cool. It's bigger than the one Steph's got. But we got to show it to Steph down in Maui, and she loves it. Yeah, it's on the mend, it's healing, and it looks really, really good. The tattooists we got are the best in the area. Deborah says, I was about all of you enjoyed. Yeah, we did. I mean, I enjoyed the second one. It's much more interesting than Wizard of Oz in some ways, because Dorothy is always a whiny little brat, as far as I can see in Wizard of Oz. I just never warmed to Judy Garland in Wizard of Oz. Yeah, Deborah says, glad Sal had a good birthday. She did. She had a good birthday here with me. And then we went up and celebrated her birthday down in Maui on the day after her birthday. And there was a cake, there were presents, there were all that kind of stuff as well. So all of that went really well. Fantastic birthday. End of the week, we've got my sister and brother-in-law and nephew coming down from Sydney. And we're going to do a little bit of a celebration then as well. She gets more birthday than I do this year, which is okay. But yeah, so Wicked for Good. Recommend it. If you've seen the first one, Deborah says I can't order correct this morning. Yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. But yeah, I had a good time with it. We then went out to Grilled and got the Wicked Burger, which is a bright green burger with bright green dipping sauce for your chips. So we had the Wicked Burger, and that was fun to have afterwards. Problem is that you eat a bright green hamburger bun, and you get these radioactive green crumbs all over your clothing. It just looks good. Carol says, has Oz gone nuts over the K-pop Demon Hunter film like here in the UK? Yeah, there's a lot of people who are. I want to see it. I actually want to see that because I don't mind a bit of anime. Dick says it's cool to have extended birthday celebration. I really should watch K-pop Demon Hunter. Friday says there are a bunch of us waiting in the other stream chat. I'll let them know. Thanks for that. I appreciate that, Friday. Yep, working, says Captain Lacer. Thank you. Beyond my control, this stuff. I'm really pissed off for you guys that it happens. But there's not much I can do except try to reconnect. And I also rebooted the computer. It wasn't a computer issue. It was something on the network at this time of day, and I'm pissed off. Carol says, I like the songs from K-pop. I am going to check it out and just see what the fuss is. Like I said, I do like anime, and I will go along for the ride. I know there are a lot of people, particularly my vintage, who get shitty and crabby about new things they don't understand. I don't. It's not my gig to get pissed off and not like things just because they're new and just because they're different and just because they're not necessarily something that is in my comfort zone. I would go along with all sorts of weird and wonderful things and just learn to understand them. I mean, I don't know what 6-7 means. And, skibbity toilet. Carol says, it's not all done so well, they've already greenlit a sequel. I can see room for a sequel after the events of the second movie. I can see room for a sequel. I mean, there's, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but there's definitely room for a sequel, particularly regarding the stuff on the Scarecrow. Rams, I said, double header on Tuesday for me, Wicked for Good and Sisu Road of Vengeance in IMAX, done by 3:15 p.m. I want to see the Sisu sequel. I've got the original one on DVD. Fantastic film. I like, if you're going after Nazis and you're going after radical bad guys of any kind, I'm there for that. Deborah says, K-pop Demon Hunter sounds like my jam. Yeah, it could be. 4-star says, if you like Margaret Hamilton in The Wizard of Oz, you'll love her in Coming Around the Mountain, where she plays an evil witch terrorizing Abbott and Costello. Yeah, I should rewatch that. I watched it when I was a kid. Should rewatch that. Dig says, maybe a naked windsurfer flew into the internet provider. Not at the moment because it's very still out there. It's sunny this morning, which is good, but it's very still out there. Captain Laser says, love anime. It's really the best animated storytelling on the planet. Needs to be on the big screen more. Yeah, I want to go and see some anime movies because our local cinema also shows the anime feature film versions of things. And there's one for Chainsaw Man I want to see. So when things settle down, I've got a lot on our plate this week. But when things settle down later this year and early into the new year, I'm going to see what anime movies they have at my local cinema and just go watch them. And also I'm going to watch a bit of Indian movies. There's a lot of Indian diaspora action films that are shown at my local multiplex. And I'm going to lean into that a lot more in the new year. And I get to see them for free, so why not? Carol says, I read the book Wicked and struggled with it a bit. There's several other books in the series. I have them, but not read them yet. Yeah, I read Wicked when it came out. And Wicked feels a little bit like it borrows from Sondheim's Into the Woods, which is reinterpretations of fairy tales in very interesting ways. And the music from Wicked for Good does feel Sondheim influence, which is not a bad thing. But I just noticed it and thought, yeah, there's a couple of motifs in there that feel very Stephen Sondheim. And that's not a bad thing at all. I think if you're not influenced by Sondheim and you're doing musicals, you're not paying attention. Oh, we're back to 17 people again, which is good. Oh, I've got to shake off the fact that that connection died because it does sit with me for a while, and I've got to not make space for it. We're almost an hour in combined on the two things, so we've got plenty of room left. Carol says, yeah, that sounds right. I was having trouble placing where Wicked was in the Oz timeline. I've read all the original books. Ramsar said, in Sisu Road to Vengeance, Atami Corporate goes after the Soviets. Remember, Stalin took a chunk of their land in the Winter War of 1939? Yeah, I'm there for that. And that particularly Finnish viewpoint on that part of history, the Winter War and all that kind of stuff, I'm there for that. And I really loved Sisu. I mean, going underwater, slitting a guy's throat, and then using his lungs as an oxygen supply. I'm there for that kind of over-the-top gore and violence used for storytelling purposes. That shit I love. It's just so well done. And the guy who plays Atami is apparently like a very famous Finnish stage actor. He's like their, I don't know, Ian McKellen in Finland. And I like the fact that they get somebody like that to play that kind of character. Dick says there's an interesting comic book series called Fables, which reimagines and updates classic fairy tales and fairy tale characters, published by DC a few years ago in their Vertigo imprint. Yeah, I should check that out. Carol says, I just think Sisu as the dragon from Rayo and the Last Dragon, actually quite a cool Disney film. Deborah says, I haven't seen the first Sisu. I need to check it. I think it is on some kind of streaming service here in Australia, Deborah. And it's just such deliciously over-the-top action. And any movie where they kill Nazis is not a bad thing as far as I'm concerned. I do want to see Nuremberg as well, where Rusty plays Hermann Goering. I really want to see that because I like a good, solid courtroom drama, particularly with that kind of an emphasis on it. And one of the other things I noticed from Wicked for Good, there's an incredible political subtext in there. I'm not going to necessarily, elucidate beyond that, but there's contemporary politics woven into that story in such a pointed way. And I really enjoyed that. I think there are things going on in the world at the moment that in a fictional narrative, it's good to point them out when it is part of the narrative, that gaslighting by political figures, which the wizard essentially is. And also the character played by Michelle Yeoh. There's a lot of stuff there that's kind of interesting. Carol says, Disney's Big Hero 6 also looks like anime film, also pretty good, and a different Disney film. Yeah, I'm hearing good things about Big Hero 6, and yeah, it's definitely influenced by anime. Ross said, you wrote Last Dragon, and I thought, who's the master? Yep. D. Lee says, I read a lot of fables that imagines fairy tale characters of refugees in our world escaping oppression. Yeah, Patrick's seen Nuremberg last week. Good flick, but it's hard to beat Judgment at Nuremberg. Yeah, I did a video way back about Judgment at Nuremberg. And I think I said, if I'm correct, I think I said it's a fantastic, solid, incredibly well acted, well directed, well written movie. But it's so intensely about that with some of the footage from the camps that, like Martyrs, it's an incredibly good film, but I'm not going to watch it again. I can let it sit where it sits in my mind and in my mental library of movies, but I'm not necessarily going to watch Judgment at Nuremberg again, but I will watch Nuremberg. Carol says, sadly, most Disney films make me cry now. Big Hero 6 caught me badly first time I saw it. Yeah, I'm enchanted by the fact that movies can move you. And I was reminded of that on the weekend because one of the things I've done for our niece, Stephanie, who is in palliative care, is I put together the video for her funeral service. And we used pictures from her life, and we used music that she wanted to have at that service. And she's organised all this herself. And I put it together instinctively, not in a sequential thing, not like from birth to where she is now, but I put it together as a mosaic of her life. And I did slow fades. I extended music a little bit to make it fit the video. And everybody I've shown it to, including Steph, likes it. Steph gave me applause for her video. But everybody else who's seen it cried. And it's partly because of who she is, but it's also because, without trying to, I created something that moves people enormously. And that video is going to be shown at her service. And it's amazing how powerful a combination of music and curated images can be to move people. And I'm not taking any credit for it. I do video all the time. I do it 4 times a week. But somehow I created something that's incredibly important to a lot of people I care for. And there's some feels about that I haven't quite processed yet. D. Lee says, I watched Judgment in Nuremberg last week. Quite a cynical film toward the end. Yep. Use of documentary shooters the camps hits hard in Nuremberg, says Patrick. Yeah, it does. Recently, I watched 2 thought-provoking science fiction movies, Colossus Forbidden Project and Demon Seed. Fortunately, actually, AI not that intelligent yet. I think that it doesn't have to be intelligent to make a threat there, Ramsar. I think all it has to be is persistent and powerful. And the scenarios I've seen where things go wrong, you don't need to have artificial general intelligence. You just have to have somebody screw up really badly when they're putting that together. And because programmers now can learn and can create their own languages to be more efficient at whatever their goal has been set as, there are real threats there, and it doesn't necessarily involve something as smart as a human being. Yep, Doug found us as well. Dick says, have Colossus on DVD too. Still got a copy of Demon Seed. Still got to get a copy of Demon Seed. Demon Seed I don't particularly like because there's a prurience to what the AI does in Demon Seed, which is very 1970s. And it's a kind of rapey fantasy in some ways. And I find that less acceptable than I did when I first saw it. Carol says, it's so unfair someone so young should have to plan their own service. Sometimes I hate the world. The support we're all giving Steph, and the guts her and her mother, Kaz, have is incredible. I'm learning so much about the best of people by being part of this. And yes, I'm going to be one of the pallbearers as well. I'm going to carry her into the service. I've learned a lot by doing that. I've learned a lot of good things. And yes, it is egregious that somebody at 29 is needing to do this and is going through this process of the palliative care. She's on morphine now. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to go too much into it. But at my advanced age, I'm learning a lot about the best of human beings by being part of this. And I so much appreciate the fact that they've allowed me to do that. Mystery Man said, just got single back Denver. Dick says, you can hear your tummy rumbling. Yeah, it is a little bit. I'm going to have to go and get some snacks later. I had breakfast. Had breakfast at 5 o'clock this morning. But I had breakfast. I'm not sure what's going on there. But yeah, so that was our weekend. Carol says, some comfort even in the darkest times. Yeah, the best quote I've got about that, Carol, is breakfast too, says Dick. Yeah. The best quote I've got about that is Wavy Gravy at Woodstock, which was a shitstorm of a place. And Wavy Gravy got up on stage and tried to reassure people. The toilets weren't working. There were food supply issues. There was mud and rain and all sorts of things in Woodstock. And Wavy Gravy stood up and said, There's always a little bit of a heaven in a disaster area. And that's true. It's like that other quote about when there's a disaster, look for the people who are either helping other people or running toward the disaster, because you'll see the best of humanity in those two things. So all of that. I don't know what I'm going to watch next, by the way, on movies. I was thinking I might dip into the Alan Ladd collection, Alan Ladd collection, and watch a couple of films out of that. Don't really know what I'm going to watch next. I think I need a palate cleanser. Maybe I need some upbeat stuff. Maybe I should rewatch The Young Girls of Rochefort again. D. says some people are at their best when life's at its worst. Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm amazed at how much guts people have, and how it's not. People talk about sporting people being heroes when all they're doing is running around paddocks. I don't buy that. I think that heroism is something entirely different, and something not as large scale, and something not as highly regarded. Dick says, what's in the Alan Ladd collection? 2 years before The Mask from 1946, Calcutta from 1947, Red Mountain from 1951, Thunder in the East from 1951, and the last movie Alan Ladd made, 13 West Street from 1961. It's a nice little collection, and getting it for $10 when its retail was $50 and it's out of print was a good thing. Doug says, I hear, Jerry, I have a nephew fighting for his life. Makes me appreciate every moment. Yeah. Patrick says, I lost my wife to cancer in 2010. The hospice experience was strangely both the worst and the best of my life. Yeah, absolutely. That process is amazing. And the people who do that as a job, the palliative care people, just incredible. And we hear so much bad about things like social media. But Steph, even though she is not in a good way, is communicating with friends she can't be with, and she's interacting with people and things like that. Social media is just a tool, and people who say social media is bad and I would never be part of social media, I would never do that, or all that kind of shit. It ain't the case. Social media is just a way we talk to each other. And yes, you can bullshit and gaslight people with it. You can make them believe egregious things with it if they are vulnerable to that. But social media is a conversation the planet is having with the rest of the planet. And we cannot underestimate how good that is. Ramsar says, looking forward to 2 non-English language movies in December. No other The Choice, South Korea, and The Secret Agent, Brazil. I've seen, I think, a trailer for Secret Agent. Yeah, that should be kind of cool. I mean, I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I've seen a South Korean movie that wasn't fascinating and wasn't great. They are doing so well, and they're not a particularly large country, but they've got a long history of cinema. There's actually a YouTube channel that shows classic old South Korean movies with subtitles, going back as far as like the 1950s. During the Korean War, they were making movies. And I forget the name of the channel. I think it's an official government channel, but it's releasing their cultural history in film, and it's definitely one you should dip into. Alan Ladd's son, Alan Ladd Jr., went on to be an important producer, says Funny. Yeah, absolutely. He did a whole bunch of good stuff in the 70s and 80s. Doug says, I'm actually finding my YouTube journey has opened up my life incredibly. New experiences, new friends. Yeah. We build communities. That's the best thing human beings do, is build communities and build connections and build a campfire around which people can gather. And we do that. And it is among the best of us. It is, fantastic things that we do. Ugh. Okay, I've got to stop flashing back on the live stream crashing again. I may put a sign out on the pit outside my house saying, "Do not touch this pit at these hours, or I will sick the cats onto you." Ramzar says, "No other choice by Park Chan-wook, who is the director of the South Korean movie Old Boy." I like all of the Vengeance trilogy. Yeah, Old Boy's good, but I like all of the other Vengeance trilogies. Middle-aged geek girls here lurking. Hello, Sally Jane. Yep, she scored so well at her birthday gig. Yeah. Deborah says, "Good on you, Doug. YouTube can be great." Yep. And Dick and Friday say hi to Sol. Yeah, she scored so well. She got tattoos, she got presents, she got chocolate bars, some of which are still in the fridge, surprisingly enough. Dalek Lives Matter. Now, what's the street price of the dog food, mate? I'm not sure where that came from. Are you on the right stream here? Deborah says, "Happy birthday to Sol." Yeah. She had a good birthday. We gathered the clan. She had a good birthday. And her sister made her a black forest cake. Kaz made her a black forest cake, which was delicious. And I was very good. I only had one slice of cake, but it was a killer good black forest cake. Forsyth says, "Is that a Herb Albert record on the shelf behind me?" Undoubtedly, there is one. Probably is, but yeah, it is down there. I've got a couple of those. Picked up a few things over the years. I'm going to rearrange things and I'm going to have that shelf with the records on it somewhere else. I'm going to put the record player on top. I haven't got the record player out at the moment. It's still in the box. But I'll put it up at some time and do that. And if you look up there, there's the Mark V Speed Racer car. D-Lee says, "I saw no other choice at the film festival recently. Interesting to see Lee Byung-hun doing physical comedy." Yeah, I've only seen him in series roles. But it's good that when actors stretch themselves out and do other things. Some of them do badly. There are some actors who are big actors who just can't do comedy. But there are others who can. Doug says, "The stupidest thing I ever did was sell my records when CDs arrived." Yeah, I mean, I've got a whole bunch of CDs. These chests down here are full of CDs. Lots of kirsch in the cake. I don't think they put kirsch in it this time, but there are a lot of really good cherries, and that always goes. Middle-aged geek girl says, "I did have a great birthday, thank you." She got a tattoo, Day of the Dead doll, Aztec death whistle, which I gave her, tabby socks, chocolate, a dragon figure, and time with my family. Yeah, all of that stuff was great, and it's very on brand for middle-aged geek girl. I did buy her an Aztec death whistle because that's the kind of thing she likes. And we did gather around her and look after her and give her chocolate. So that's a good thing too. Ramzar said, "Last Samurai Standing Season 1 is a new series on Netflix, just 5 hours. Great addition to the samurai movies." Cool. What am I watching at the moment? The two things I'm really watching at the moment are Down Cemetery Road, which is an adaptation of a Mick Herron book series with Emma Thompson playing a private eye. I'm enjoying that. And Pluribus, the Vince Gilligan follow-up he's done after Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. Good science fiction. Fantastic premise. I think we're 4 episodes in, and the story's twisting and turning in very interesting ways. Yep. Doug says, "Down Cemetery Road is so good." It is. It's very tight. And the fact that the two protagonists really are women whose lives have just been changed enormously. I like that aspect of it. But Pluribus is just fantastic. highly recommended. And having a damaged, grumpy, middle-aged woman as the protagonist in Pluribus is just perfect. Ray Seahorn is just incredible in that role. And in some ways, people go, yeah, there's nothing good on television. I've heard that a lot on Facebook, particularly. Nothing good on television. But these streaming services, the short series, run 6, 8 to 10 episodes. Incredible stuff. Really stuff that will stand the test of time. And it's not getting any real respect because it's not traditional linear television. But there's some great stuff there, good writing. It's less shackled by censorship, which linear television very much is. And it can tell stories that are grown up in a really good way. And there are some incredibly creative people doing them. Deborah says, Down Cemetery Road is really good. Haven't watched Pluribus yet. She went and saw The Running Man last week and had a great time. Yeah, I'm still not convinced that Glenn Powell isn't CG. He isn't an AI creation. And I get the vibe from Glenn Powell that he's one of those guys who, as a teenager, stood in front of the bathroom mirror and quoted Clint Eastwood lines to himself. He's got that vibe like he learned how to have Riz on the screen by watching Clint Eastwood movies. Dalek Lives Matter says, Welcome to Derry has been excellent so far, especially the acting of the kids. They so occupy those parts well. Yeah, I'm hearing the action's good, but I'm a bit wary of movies that are based on nostalgia for something in the past. And I don't know, for me at least, whether it has it for me, and that I want to see extensions of that. I think Pluribus is the example. That's a news story. That doesn't rely, it has influences, but it's an independent IP. It's a story that is going to have a finite end by the very nature of the premise. And it's incredibly good. I think that shows that originality and new stuff is much, much richer for us than something that keeps having nostalgia beats and is reliant on a previous intellectual property. Doug says, just watch Malice on Netflix with Jack Whitehall. Surprisingly good. Cool. The other thing, I've got to do this before the end of the live stream too. I found a new subgenre of horror movies called Femgore. It's not necessarily a subgenre really, but it's a way of looking at horror movies. It's a little bit different. Femgore. And is considered a subgenre of horror in which female protagonists are given agency over the narrative, and while still victims and objectified and exploited, to an extent, they're not passive. So basically it's the Last Girl thing partly, but it's stuff like The Substance, where the characters are given a certain agency, and a bunch of other horror movies, Coralie Farger being the poster child for this. And also Jamie Lee Curtis in the Halloween series being the original example of this. Femgore, I find an interesting way of looking at certain horror movies and evaluating them and saying, do the female characters in these horror movies have agency? Are they active in the plot, or are they just there to scream and be naked? So Femgore I like as a way of reevaluating movies. I mean, even in movies as facile as Sorority Babes at the Slime Ball Bowl-orama, the female characters, even though they are victimized and objectified and all that, have some agency. Linnea Quigley's character has agency in that movie. And I like the idea of having a portmanteau term for looking at horror movies in a different way. Deborah says, yeah, Glenn Powell doesn't do it for me. The Tom Cruise vibe is too strong, but the set pieces are great. And Dalek Lives Matter says, the final girl trap in is historic in horror movies. Yeah, it is. And it's valid. But I've seen final girls who are just good at running away and not actually trying to fight back. And I think Femgore is about them standing up and going, I'm over this shit. Even if they aren't successful ultimately. The agency of the female characters is paramount in Femgore. Middle-aged Geeker says, Radio Night's an excellent example of that, and it's a great movie. Yeah, I remember you telling me about that, Sal. May have to check that out at some stage when I've finished some other things. Friday says, really watching The Blacklist, absolutely love it. Now I know the big secret, no spoilers, and knowing that the writers had the answers from the beginning, the rewatch is a very new experience. Yeah. James Spader's performance is even better when you think it's the first time you watch it. Really hate the makeup. I really hate the make it up as you go along. Nature of a lot of American genre shows like The X-Files. Yeah, you got to have the end game in place. And you can meander it however you like, but the end game's got to be in place. I think Pluribus, Vince Gilligan knows the end game. And there are so many ethical questions that are raised by that series. It can blow your head up. Deborah says, Femgore is an extension of the final gold trap. Yeah, I would go along with that, Deborah, absolutely. And I like that as a kind of mental tool for me to evaluate horror movies. Ramzar says, Apple TV Plus has a $5.95 month offer for 6 months. Cancel anytime. Offers expires December 1st. Yeah, there's a lot of Black Friday deals with another streaming services. BritBox is doing it here. I think Stan's doing it here. There are a bunch of, I don't know, apart from Netflix and Amazon, I think a lot of streaming services are trying to hook people by those Black Friday deals. And good on them. They're putting out some good stuff, putting out some shit, but they're also putting out some very fine stuff as well. Deborah says, agrees, Sally, Ready or Not immediately came to my mind too. Cool. For Sale says, I love Patricia Tallman in the 1990 color remake of The Night of the Living Dead. She was good in that, but I don't like the idea that they did a 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead. Ralph says, Slashback is good. It's Predator, but the protagonists are young First Peoples girls in Way North Canada. That sounds cool. And again, I like those other voices, other cultural voices, getting into various genres. I always learn stuff from that, and I always appreciate that. And I always love the fact that I don't know where the plot's going because I am not part of that culture, and I can't see ahead of the curve on a movie like that. Middle-aged Geek Girl says, I love the X-Files. I got tired of Supernatural because it seemed to make it up as you go. And Middle-aged Geek Girl says, Deborah, it was the first movie I watched this year, and it was such fun. Cool. And finally says to Dalek Lives Matter, so historic, there's a solo board game called Final Girl, and you buy expansions of the specific Final Girl scenarios. Yeah, that's cool. Final Girl trope is great. The only thing I don't like about Final Girl is traditionally in the 70s and 80s, the final girls were the virgins, and the people were punished for being sexually active in those horror movies. And I think there's a trope there that people really need to reconsider because, I mean, there have been exceptions. There have been ones where the people who are sexually active are the ones who survive, and the people who are repressed aren't. But that, you have sex, you will die in a horror movie sucks, and not in a happy birthday kind of way. Looks like we're back up to speed with the live stream. 22 people. That's a good effort. And thank you to everybody who's part of these live streams. It would be so much less of an experience for me if you guys weren't here interacting. And offering things to me as much as I offer them to you. It's a very, very nice circle jerk. I shouldn't have said that, but I did. Yeah, I'm kind of focusing on what I'm going to watch next. And I've got so many choices. I know I've got to do a video for Wednesday. And I've got a couple of things I downloaded to watch for that. Cabin in the Woods says middle-aged geek girl. Address that, though. They mentioned the new definition of the virgin. Yeah, Cabin in the Woods is such a meta movie. And has a killer ending. I mean, I know some people think the ending is messy, but I think it's perfectly messy. Darling Loves Matter says, so glad they didn't insert the final girl trope in Passion of the Christ. Wasn't it Mary Magdalene? Passion of the Christ is a horror movie. It just happens to have Jesus in it. Friday says, not in Cherry Falls. I'm not sure what Cherry Falls is. I've gone blank. But yeah, Femgore, I think, is a incredibly useful way. It's like the Bechdel test. When I found out about Bechdel test, where a movie, if a conversation is between two female characters, and it's not about boys, the movie passes the Bechdel test. I think that's a useful tool for evaluating movies and evaluating how adept the screenwriter is. Ramsar says, I'll binge Pluribus in December since the last episode's on December 26th. Vince Gilligan's series of the best, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Yeah. And he is really good in this one. And the ethical issues that Pluribus raises right from the very first episode are incredible. And you can think about them going, that scenario, who's right and wrong in that scenario? Is it Carol or is it the rest of the human race? Really fascinating. And they're bringing in kind of tertiary characters as well, which are going to change the narrative when they become a bit more prominent. Zammy Adams says, I just finished the book Tender is the Flesh, a brilliant read. Cool. Is that a horror movie reference book? Ralph says, Secret Richard Jenkins horror movie star, Cabin in the Woods and Stone Tomahawk. Stone Tomahawk is just such a cool, low-budget horror movie. Dalek Loves Matter says, Passion of the Christ, the only film for Christmas. Well, that and Pasolini's. No, so I'm still going to rewatch Die Hard. I've got the 4K now. I'm going to sit down and just groove on Nakatomi Plaza sometime in December. Friday says, I still love the line from Randolph Carter in The Unnameable, where he learns that the jocks invited the girls to the abandoned house. Aha, the plot gets thinner. I can see that. Middle-aged geek girl says, those of you that love Luna will be happy to know she's bitten me 7 times since I got home because I smell like dog. Jack, my sister's dog. Yeah, Sal was up last night after I went to bed, and Luna bit her because she could smell dog on her. And I love that. I think it's funny. Deborah says, Starter Loves Matter, the movie you describe will fall in that category. Think of Femgore as a tool for analysis, a way of looking at film, as Terry suggested. It is. It's just a way of looking at film. And for me, doing what I do, having a toolkit like that and the Bechdel test and a bunch of other things allows me to open up parts of the film that I might have been ignorant of if I hadn't that tool in my toolkit. And I'm there for that. I like that idea. And that's why I read reference books and read other reviews of movies, usually after I've seen the film and reviewed it, because I want to expand how I do this in the ways I look at films. I mean, things like The Invisible Avenger, which I reviewed in the last video I did, that subtext of the Invisible Man being something not like the thing that Invisible Men are in any other Invisible Man movie. I'm more open to that because my toolkit has a lot of different things in it. Doug says, I might do Die Hard 2 this Christmas. Yeah, that's just as valid. Zoe Adams says that book is about a future where we all eat human flesh. I mean, that brings up the ethical issue of is if you clone human flesh and you make burgers out of cloned human meat, is it cannibalism or is it just the new pork? There are ethical issues there, and people may have religious objections to eating that meat. But it's going to come up at some stage, and people are going to go, yep, we cloned human meat, and we're going to use it to make Chipotle or burgers or halal snack. I don't know whether it's halal or not, but, snack packs. And those ethical issues are interesting. The ethical issues of if we do this, is it right, is it wrong, or is it just it? Are fascinating to play with in fictive narratives. Dick says, before Roxy had her recent troubles and went to the animal hospital, we have a play and she punched me in the head, says Dick. What did you do to make a cat punch you in the head? Middle-aged geek girl says, I saw Gremlins pop up under holiday movies on one of the streaming services. I can't remember which one, but it is finally being recognised as a Christmas movie. Yep, and we've got it on Blu-ray, so we can watch it anytime we like. And Friday says, middle-aged geek girl, she's defending you from the dog influence. It's love, really. Yep. Luna, actually, I was playing with the dog too. Maybe not to the extent Sal did, where the dog tried to give her a French kiss. But I play with the dog too. And Luna kind of accepts me now. I'm wearing the same pants I wore yesterday, which have dog smell on them. But she rubbed against me with no trouble at all this morning. Rams says, first Home Alone for Christmas. Don't like Home Alone. For some reason, I didn't dig Home Alone. And I think I figured out why finally. I was thinking about it last week. And this is purely my glitch. And I will accept that it's purely my glitch. I don't like movies where the parents are neglectful and abusive. And in this sense, Kevin's parents are neglectful. They leave this fucking kid behind in the house. And they they obviously care for the kid, but they left the kid alone. And that's probably one of my triggers. Friday says, technically human meat is vegan. No other species of animal is abused. Yeah, but selling that point to a vegan is going to be bloody difficult, Friday. Carol's already watched the Muppet Christmas Carol. Village Kicker says, do you like the theory Kevin grew up to be Jigsaw? Ramsar, both parts of Livestream has the famous. Thank you, Ramsar. US $1.99. I like the way it focuses on the horn of the fart gun. Thanks, Rams. I appreciate the support, mate. Deborah says, always a diehard and Black Christmas household here. I'm kind of going with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang as well, because I love Shane Black, and I think Val and Robert Downey Jr. are just such fun together, and I love the movie. So I'm going to go with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I'll do three Christmas. What three Christmas movies will I do? Die Hard, obviously. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Maybe The Silent Partner with Elliot Gould and Christopher Plummer. I think I'll make that my holy trinity for Christmas. I think that's a good choice. Very different films, each in their own way. Well, crime films, I suppose. But I find each of those three movies very satisfying. And so Sal will have different choices. She'll probably put Gremlins in there and other things. But for me, Die Hard, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and The Silent Partner, all of which I've got on disc, so that's easy. Dick says cash on demand as well. Yep, if you're going to add an extra one, cash on demand is very good. Hammer movie was put out in a box set maybe 15 years ago of Hammer Obscurities. But Cash on Demand is a really nice one with Andre Morel and Peter Cushing, crime film. Zammy Adams says Christmas Evil is the one for me. Excellent film. Doug says, don't forget Long Kiss Goodnight, very underrated Shane Black. Yeah, I was kind of restricting myself to one Shane Black, Doug. Middle-aged Giggle says, Nightmare Before Christmas, Gremlins, and that's it. You got to pick another one, Sal. Pick another one. Deborah says, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang could be included if I can find the DVD. Yeah, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is great, and the dialogue's fantastic in that. Is The Nice Guys a Christmas movie? I'm going to check that out because I like that as a Shane Black movie as well. And my friend Nadine Whitney put some extras into the latest release of The Nice Guys. I don't have that version of it. Hang on, come here. Why is he doing that? Because I'm wondering whether The Nice Guys are set at Christmas or not. Let me have a look. Nice Guys. Come on, internet. Doesn't look like it is. There is a Christmas scene at the end with Ryan Gosling's character and Rusty's character. So there is a Christmas aspect to The Nice Guys, but it's not purely a Christmas movie. Middle-aged girl says, any rack and bass, cool. Ramsar says, first Die Hard for Christmas already. And Dick says, Carol's Choice. She says, Cash on Demand is a type of Scrooge story if you look at the Peter Cushing character. It is, absolutely. And Doug says, pretty sure Nice Guys is set at Christmas. Middle-aged geek girl says, Mad Monster. Friday says, Mad Monster Party. I love that. And Deborah says, the Nice Guys is so underrated. It is. And Kiss Kiss Bang Bang has the best commentary track I've ever heard on a DVD. Says For Sale. Nice. I haven't actually watched the commentary soundtrack. I don't know whether the version I've got of it has a commentary soundtrack. But the interesting thing I was saying is, I don't know whether it's just people have upgraded, but the Long Kiss Goodnight, a few thrift stores are starting to get copies of that on DVD. So it might be worth looking around. If you are a thrifty person, it might be good to look around and just see whether you can find a copy of that if you don't have it. Ramsar said, Trading Places for a Christmas movie. Yep. Middle-aged girl has decided her third one, which is Krampus. And Krampus is fun. Nice little horror movie there. We have such a wealth of cinema to play with these days. At some stage, Julian over at Collector Creations YouTube channel is doing a documentary about people who collect physical media. I'm going to be interviewed for it. And one of the things I want to emphasize is how different it was when I was a kid, when you couldn't own a copy of a movie. How different that is to now, and how much of a fascinating arc it is to have lived through those times and to be a movie buff and to now have the ability to have quite an extensive library of movies, some of which I saw when I couldn't own a copy of a movie and some of which are new. I think that's a sign of a good civilization when you can access cool things quite easily. Dalek Loves the Matter says, Batman Returns. Ralph says, Trading Places, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Middle-aged Giggle says, I celebrate Creepmas anyway, not Christmas. Ramsar says, Scrooge for a Christmas movie. The funniest bit in Scrooge is Robert Goulet's old school Cajun Christmas. The ad for that is fantastic, where he's singing Silver Bells and rowing a pirogue down a bayou. I mean, I love that bit. Friday says, 1 year I did a whole Christmas season of films for myself, starting in December and ending on February the 2nd with Groundhog Day. That's a project, isn't it? Dalek Loves Matter says, the greatest story ever told. Isn't that an Easter movie? I don't know. Ramsar says, German animated movie Klaus for Christmas movie. Cool. Doug says, if you like British comedy, see a show called Worst Christmas of My Life. We watch DVD every year. Cool. Terrifier 3 says Dalek loves money. True. And Art the Clown definitely deconstructs Christmas in quite a vivid way. Friday says more people need to watch The Box of Delights for Christmas. Is that an adult film? Because it sounds like an adult film. Let me check. TV series. Let's see. Children's fantasy novel turned into a TV series. So Patrick Troughton's in there, Robert Stevens. Made in 1984 by the look of it, with chroma key and Quantel paint box effects. That might be fun. I'll leave that tab open. Mystery Man says, I remember grabbing the Sunday newspaper and highlighting all the movies I wanted to watch, then planning my week around it. Cool. Dick says Box of Delights is good too. Ramsay says, Love Actually with great acting by Bill Nye, lots of vignettes during the Christmas season. Don't like Love Actually because all the guys in it are pricks. They're really assholes. And even some of the ones who go, oh, isn't he lovely? You think, no, he's an asshole. He's a monster. And you know, I would kick him if he was lying in a gutter. Middle-aged girl says we dislike Love Actually in this house. Yeah, I actually reviewed it for ABC Darwin once, and we ripped it apart and people got unhappy. Ralph says, my wife and I switch back and forth between Love Actually and Muppet Christmas Carol. There are a lot of Muppets in Love Actually. Dodge Morgan, hi. Lots of slasher movies set at Christmas. Spoiler alert, the killer is normally dressed as Santa. Yeah, that started out with, there was an Amicus anthology movie where Joan Collins gets monstered by a maniac in a Santa suit. Friday says, I was really unstuck at home was a great way to make a good thing out of a bad time, which was her journey all the way through to Groundhog Day. Forsyth said, I didn't like Bad Santa. Middle-aged girl says, they're releasing a remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night this year. Yeah, because we can't have new things. That's going to be my new thing. You know how people say we can't have nice things? No, with movies, sometimes with some people, we can't have new things. Deborah says, Love Actually is awful. Middle-aged girl says, I remember my family watching that when I was young. I didn't watch it though. That was Silent Night, Deadly Night she's talking about. Doug says, White Christmas is my sentimental go-to, then It's a Wonderful Life. Doesn't White Christmas have blackface in it, or is that the follow-up, Holiday Inn? One of them's got blackface in it, which is something I like less than I did when I was a kid and ignorant. What other Christmas movies would I watch? Trying to think. There's one, an old one with Robert Mitchum in it, back in the 40s. There's Robert Mitchum in a Christmas movie as well. I forget the name of it. Doug says, I think blackface is in Holiday Inn. Yeah, you're probably right, Doug. Which is probably why Christmas is getting more releases than Holiday Inn. That's one of the things I like to do when I'm in a puckish mood on movie groups on Facebook. Go into a movie group on Facebook and says, why hasn't anybody remade the Jolson story? And you can really mess with their heads and they get really angry with it. Zammy Adams says, Tales from the Crypt, first story with Joan Collins is brilliant. Yeah, the tension in that ramps up nicely. And Dodge Morgan also says, Tales from the Crypt was the Amicus Santa slasher segment. Yeah, Love Actually is a big hate watch, says Franny. Also, Keira Knightley can do one after amazingly dismissive comments about trans people. Absolutely. there are some people I really liked in movies who have said some nasty things about trans people, and I kind of go, no, I'm not watching your stuff anymore. I do make those judgment calls. And people go, oh, you're cancelling people and it's nasty. But here's my take on it. There are enough cool things to watch and good things to watch and wonderfully elucidating, enlightening things to watch. Just such a richness of things for us to watch, whether it's streaming services, linear television, movies, anything like that. I don't have to give my attention and my money to people who are cruel and nasty to other people, and actively cruel and nasty, and use their fame and celebrity to be cruel and nasty to people we need to offer a hand to rather than punching down to. So I'll continue to do that. And yes, people can disagree with me, and I'm fine with that. My hide's thick enough that I'll do that. But punching down isn't something I'm going to put up with in the people that I give my attention to. It's like when Sal and I went to see Wicked for Good. They had a bloody trailer for a Michael Jackson biopic made by his family. And I thought, are they going to do Jimmy Savile next? Are they going to make an uplifting biopic about Jimmy Savile? Because Michael Jackson did the same things Jimmy Savile did, but he had better lawyers. And I find it egregious that there's a musical in Melbourne about Michael Jackson and that there's a movie biopic about Michael Jackson at the moment. I find that repulsive at a very deep, visceral level. And yes, it is because of my own abuse. Darling Loves Matter says, City of Lost Children instead of Christmas. I like City of Lost Children. I think I've reviewed it. Dick says, First Blood with Sylvester Stallone is set in and around Christmas. Yeah. Middle-aged Giga says, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer teaches us all to be mean to people who are different until you need their help. Yeah, that's not a good signal there, is there? Matthew says, Hi, Terry. I always associate a lot of classic Bond movies with Christmas. As in the UK pre-VHS days, it was the highlight day of the day. Yeah, I can see that. They did that too. Around Father's Day, they used to always show The Great Escape and The Dirty Dozen and all of those kind of blokey action films of the era. Lots of Ramza says, Hi, and I see you, Ramza. I hope you're watching good movies. Hi, Damien. Welcome aboard. Dick says, the Coen Brothers film The Hudsucker Proxy is a Christmas movie. Cool. Franny says, my problem is I can't now watch Keira Knightley without remembering her comments. I don't want to slap myself in the face watching a movie. Perfectly legitimate approach. It's like I once met Kevin Spacey at a presser. It was a very small presser before he hit big for Albino Alligator. And I talked to him a little bit about movies. And then he became who we know him to be. Weird. Dick says, The Wild Geese is a Christmas movie. Cool. Dodge Morgan says, love the original Miracle on 34th Street. It even makes me believe he is Santa Claus. Why not? There's no downside to that. If you believe someone's Santa Claus, they're Santa Claus. But if it's a guy with an axe standing at your door, I wouldn't believe that guy's Santa Claus. ME says, I like Christmas movies that highlight the liminal time of the holidays. Diner, Metropolitan, Comfort and Joy. Reminds me of the time off I had from school during Christmas. Cool. And the big liminal time is that time between Christmas and New Year. Excuse me. Time between Christmas and New Year is a very liminal time for me. Because a lot of my favorite cafes shut down and I can't get a decent coffee unless I make it myself. It's the worst of liminal times between Christmas and New Year. And it's a wonderful New Year's miracle when the cafes open up and I can get a bacon and egg, I can get a decent espresso, and the world rights itself. Mystery Man says, you make a pretty good Santa Claus. Yeah, but I'd have to get a working with children permit. There's a big bureaucratic hassle there. I am good with kids, though. I mean, middle-aged gig girl probably agrees. I'm good with kids. She's great with kids. She's a fucking miracle worker with kids. But I'm good with kids, too. Middle-aged gig girl says, that liminal time isn't a problem now that you don't work in the city. Yep, and also, it's good now because I can make my own coffee with my coffee subscription from Mahalia. Damien says, around Christmas we watched as kids Olivia Newton-John in Funny Things Down Under on ABC, which just got a release on Blu-ray from Umbrella. Heather and I look forward to watching it again at Christmas. Yeah, because you've got that disc now, haven't you? Middle-aged Google says, I am great with kids. Yeah, I am, because I treat them as people first. And I don't talk down to them because I don't like being talked down to. Why would a kid like being talked down to? And also, I know a lot of the memes kids. I mean, I had to explain 6'7" to sell. Sorry, 6'7" to sell. She didn't understand it. Deborah says, we call the week between Christmas and New Year the dead zone. Yep. Darling Lives Matter says, if something different outside of the usual festival slop, the Green Knight is cool. Yeah, I actually gave a talk about the Green Knight at a science fiction discussion group called the Nova Mob. And it was great. I really enjoyed it. And I compared and contrasted it to other Green Knight narrations like Gawain in the Green Knight and things like that. Franny says, I would love a big cast movie that we would get on holidays, The Great Race, those magnificent men in their flying machines. What are other people's favourite big production movies of that type? Let's see. Around the World in 80 Days is probably the big one, Franny. Mike Todd's Around the World in 80 Days. Had everybody in it. And also, it's a mad, 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 mad world where you get like cameos from the Three Stooges and a whole bunch of other people. Those kind of big movies. It's a mad, 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 mad world. I've got the Criterion edition of. And it's like, what are they going to do next? They run an aeroplane through a billboard. It's yeah, they really, those were big tentpole movies at the time where they would have an intermission in the middle. And you'd also get like a booklet of the movie with all the details of the movies in it. And the last movie I saw that had that is I went to see The Hateful Eight at the Astor, and they had the movie booklet and the intermission and the whole thing. And it was a good nostalgia boost to have that. Dick says, isn't the film The Dead Zone Christopher Walken a Christmas movie? Probably is, but it's not a happy one. Damien says, I love It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And Ralph says too. Yeah, it's those big movies were just crazily good fun because of the fact that you never knew who was going to pop up. The weird one is John Huston's The List of Adrian Messenger, where a lot of the small characters you see are famous Hollywood actors in makeup, so you couldn't really see that it was them. You could see through it if you knew. But there were a whole bunch of cameos in that as well. Dalek Lives Matter says, I used to live near the actual site of some Winifreds in Wales. Great for me when it popped up in The Green Knight. Yeah, it's I think The Green Knight's an underrated movie. It's just such a fascinating way of telling that story. Ralph says, I'm a 12-year-old in with the 40-plus years of experience myself. Best way to be when you're watching some movies. It's nearly time to go, people. That's horrible. It's egregious, and it also got cut in half. So, we really must knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast, how time has passed, and we must end our show. Thanks to everybody that persisted through the hassles. Thanks to everybody who was part of the chat and made this so much better than it would have been otherwise. I may patch the two together and release the live stream as one video if I get some time. So I may do that this afternoon. Yeah, take care, Dick and Carol, and also Roxy. Thanks to everybody who's been a part of this. It's just so much fun. And it went down so many different paths this time, which is good. It gives it a texture and a grittiness I like. So anyway, you guys take care of yourselves. Enjoy your movie watching. And we'll be back very soon.
And kisses from Fred. Oh, we really should knock that naughty clock who says it's time to go. It goes so fast, our time has passed. We must end our show. So be good girls and boys all day, whether at home or school or play.